code.
Morse code? What are you using Morse code for?
Well, you know how it really, really hurts to talk.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I thought I'd do the introduction in Morse code.
You can't do that because I don't know Morse code.
Well, you do the introduction then.
Okay. Welcome to Recipe for the Day from kitchennewbie.com. Today we're going to be talking about homemade marzipan.
Well, you're going to be talking and I'm going to be listening or grunting or coughing or
Whatever.
any of the above.
It's been a horrible thing, this. We've both had it and you're really trying not to cough, so I will carry on with our recipe. Now, what I find interesting is that people think that it's difficult to make marzipan. Now, the other name for marzipan is what my mum used to call it, almond paste. It's both the same thing. If you look on the cover of your bought stuff, it will usually say marzipan. But just now and again, it may say almond paste, but they're both the same. Some people call it almond icing as well. That's a European thing, I've noticed. It won't be in English, it'll be in French, but that's the way they say it's almond icing.
Icing d'almond or something.
It's something like that. D'amande. Yeah, d'amande. Oh, that's a nice way of saying it. Right, so marzipan. Now, it's the time of year that I've made my Christmas cakes. Obviously, I won't be marzipaning them
Have we done a podcast on Christmas cake?
Yes, we did.
Yeah, we did, yeah.
We've also got, I think, the podcast is of it actually when I'm actually doing the cake.
Right, okay.
But now we're going to just talk about the topping. Now, you won't be making this. You don't have to make this a couple of weeks beforehand. Make it the day you're going to use it or the day before. Now, traditionally, it has egg in it. It can be done in a cook. You can cook it off a bit, your egg, but it's very dicey. It's not easy to do. I never bother with this because eggs are safe. We've been told eggs are safe.
Eggs are safe.
But if you don't like the idea of using eggs or you're egg intolerant, you can use water.
There's not a lot of tolerance about at the moment, is there really?
No. There isn't really. No, let's not go into that. Okay. That's too political. And I know what you're talking about.
Ooh.
Not that it's ever happened to me, but yeah, I can't remember.
Let's get on with it.
Right,
let's go on with it.
Right. Actually, it did once. Anyway, never mind. I forgot what I was saying now. Oh yeah, you can use water, which I'll talk about later on. But for the basic recipe...
The eggy one.
Yeah. Now, an American marzipan generally just has the egg white. Some English or British ones just use the egg yolk. I use the whole egg. The majority of people that I've spoken to and I've worked with, they generally use the whole egg. The reason being is you get a nice colour using the yolk. Yeah. You get a slightly yellow, because I don't want to put loads of colourings into my marzipan at the moment. Because the ones you buy, you can get the white marzipan or you can get the completely bright yellow marzipan. Yeah. If you like that, you can achieve that. We'll talk about that later. Without using fake colouring. You can use a natural way of doing that. So for the recipe, if you're going to use my recipe, this covers a whole of a 9-inch Christmas cake. So it goes down the sides. If you like it nice and thick, your marzipan, I tend to do it halfway down the sides. And because I like a nice thick coating of marzipan, and so do all the people in my family who like
to have an icing covering over everything.
Well, that's right. So if it will do that to your 9-inch, 8 centimetre deep cake. It
a
will.
9-inch and an 8 centimetre.
I mix my metaphors. So not my measurements.
Measurements, yes.
I mix my metaphors.
8 centimetres. That is about 3.5
Yeah,
inches.
well, I'm talking about a normal sized Christmas cake. If you're using my recipe,
you can't have too much bigger Christmas cake.
No, you can't. And now, there are two ways of doing this. You can do it in an ordinary mixing bowl and use a spoon and your hands, or you can pop it into your food processor. I actually prefer to do it in a bowl. I can see the texture better. I can feel it better. And you don't want it too wet or sticky. You want it just right. Now, this is probably the trickiest part, but I'll talk about that again in a moment. Now, you need 350 grams of ground almonds. This, as I say, this covers a big cake. Your ground almonds usually come in 200 gram packets, so you'll have to get two. Now, I have made my own ground almonds in the past, but they're very oily and they can be a bit damp. So I would suggest you buy them. You can buy 500 gram packs, I'm sure, from somewhere, but you do need 350 grams. So pop those, once you've weighed them out, into a big clean mixing bowl. Now I say clean, it's got to be nice and dry.
Yeah.
You don't want any moisture in it at all. Now you need to then sieve 200 grams of icing sugar, or powdered sugar as our American friends call it.
Really? Do they do that?
They call it powdered sugar.
Oh, because they call it frosting, don't they, as well?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, I sieve that into another bowl, or you can sieve it into your bowl and mix it all together if you wish. But I like to sieve it twice.
Yeah.
So I sieve it into a bowl once, then I pop it in to the sieve again and put it straight into the ground almonds. Then stir in 150 grams of golden caster sugar. So that goes into your mixture. Then give it a good stir with a wooden spoon or a metal, just a spoon of some kind. A long handle one is easier. Make sure it's really well combined. This is where, if you do it in your food processor, you could always pop it into a bowl afterwards. Now then, in another little jug, you'll need 2 teaspoons of lemon juice. Now, the reason you use lemon juice is twofold. One, it's a slight preservative.
Right.
But it lifts the flavour and keeps it a good colour. It doesn't go grey.
So teaspoons.
Remember, it won't... Sorry?
A small amount, teaspoons.
2 teaspoons.
So that's like half an ounce, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
2 teaspoons.
Yeah, 2 teaspoons, yeah.
Yeah. Sprinkle that out into a jug and then add probably half to 1 teaspoons of almond extract.
Right.
You don't. If you like a very strong flavour, then a couple of teaspoons. But I find 1 teaspoon is just right for this amount of almond paste, because you want a good flavour. But then again, if you're not very keen on it, use half. But you don't need to put it in at all if you wish. You could put vanilla in and make a vanilla.
Okay.
Because your ground almonds don't actually taste very almondy.
No, they
I know
don't.
it's a funny thing to say.
The oils have been evaporated away
right.
from
Or
them.
you can combine the two. You could do half a teaspoon of vanilla, half a teaspoon of
For me,
almond.
it's marzipan and it's
got
almond.
to have almond.
Yeah.
That's what I agree. Now then, in your jug, so you've got your lemon juice. When I say a jug, just a small container. Then you need to have another jug with an egg beaten in it. I'll tell you why. It's not got to go in with your vanilla, your flavourings.
Yeah.
But the other thing that can go into your flavourings, if you wish, is half to 1 tablespoons of brandy. So you've got your mixing bowl full of your sugars and your almonds. You've got a small container, jug, whatever, with your lemon juice and your extract in, and your egg beaten into a separate jug. Right, now sprinkle your extract and your lemon juice over the top of your sugar mixture and mix it in a little bit. It's a bit difficult, a bit tricky, that bit. But then you need to add sufficient egg to make a pliable mixture. It probably won't be all of your egg.
So you dribble it in.
So dribble a bit in and use your hands at this stage, nice clean hands, sort of kneading it in really. If you're not very keen on using your hands, then put some plastic gloves, some
nursey gloves.
Yeah.
Oh, nursey.
Not rubber gloves. So keep adding it till you can actually squeeze it, and it gives a nice sort of pliable texture, and it stays squeezed. It doesn't crumble.
Right. Yeah.
If it's too sticky, you can add a little bit more icing sugar if you go a little bit too overboard. Now, you need to knead that together. Now, this is why you don't mix your flavourings in, your lemon juice and your extract in with your egg, because you won't necessarily use all your egg, so you'll just dilute your flavourings. If you've used brandy, you see, you won't need to use as much egg. So put those in first, and then your egg is the binder.
Yeah.
Now, if you're going to use water, you'll have 2 tablespoons of water. Not 2 teaspoons, 2 tablespoons at room temperature.
Yeah.
And add that in the same way. Now then, when you add your water, it'll be nice and pliable and moist at the beginning. But as it evaporates off, it will get dry and it will get crumbly and crack. So use that as soon as you've mixed it, if you're using water. And roll it out and pop it on top of your cake. Just let your marzipan dry out on your cake anyway a little bit. But if you're making it with egg, it will keep, so long as it's wrapped up in cling film, it will keep till the next day. But do use it up because it's got egg in it.
When you're putting your marzipan on your cake, do you glue it down with something?
Right, now give me a chance.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Right, so you've made your marzipan. Oh, I'm sorry, I shouldn't shout at you, should I?
No, you shouldn't shout at me.
No.
It's not fair on
I'm
me.
not shouting, really. Right, so you've got your marzipan now, ready to make your cake. We'll talk about what other things you can do with your marzipan afterwards. Now, the easiest way to do it is to dust a work surface with a little bit of icing sugar, and then put your ball of marzipan on the top and carefully roll it out as though you're rolling out. Now, it won't be as tricky to roll out as pastry if it's not sticky at all, you see, because it won't crack so much, and it doesn't stick as badly.
Well, if you've used egg, you've got a colloidal suspension. It's a bit like an emulsion. So
right, so it will keep together. It might crack a bit more if you've used water.
Yeah, exactly.
But the reason you use icing sugar is because you don't want to use flour.
No.
Because flour is not...
Yeah, there's no flour in this at all.
You don't use flour, you use icing sugar to make it non-stick. And I do the same with my rolling pin. I put a little bit of icing sugar in. Now roll it out until it's the size you want to cover your cake. Then, when your cake's there, you need to stick it down with something. Now, most recipes,
Superglue.
most people... flour paste. Yeah. I used to use that a lot when I was a kid.
But not for this, though.
No, most people use apricot jam.
Yeah.
The reason being is it's a fairly blandish flavour. It's good, sticky, and it doesn't have seeds in it. If you haven't got that, you could use golden syrup. I've used syrup. I've used marmalade, but I tend to make sure it's not got any of the...
Clear marmalade, yeah.
Yeah, no shreds in it.
Yeah.
And I've also used honey. Now, probably the one I use most is honey. Now, all you need to do is to warm your honey. And what I tend to do is I have a little ramekin that I've heated up in boiling water, and then I put a tablespoon of whatever I'm using in that, so that warms up. And what happens is it becomes slacker and more fluid. So you can brush it then all over your cake where you want to stick your marzipan down. So if it's going right to the bottom of your cake, then make sure it's covered. It doesn't have to be layered, it just has to be it doesn't have to be thick, that's what I'm trying to say. Just well brushed. And then lift your marzipan over the top of your cake and then just gently... Now, you might have a bit of gathering around it, like a skirt. So what you need to do is just fold it and mould it around your cake.
Fold it and mould it.
And if you're going to be putting some icing on the top, you won't actually see... It can be a bit rough looking. Now, for my son and daughter-in-law, they're not keen on icing. Yeah. So I tend to just leave a thick layer of marzipan over. And then just dust it with a little bit of icing sugar all the way over the top, and then just smooth it out with your hands. And then leave it wrapped up again in whatever wrappings your Christmas cake has been till you're ready to decorate it with icing sugar. And we'll talk about royal icing another day.
Yeah.
As that's easy to make. Now then, what else can you do with your marzipan? You can do lots of things. You can make it into little fruit shapes, and if you make that amount of marzipan, that makes you quite a lot of little fruits, and they're nice to decorate your Christmas cake with. You could make Christmas trees and
all sorts of things.
And all you need to do is to divide bits of your marzipan off, just take a bit off, and add a little couple of drops of food colouring. Now, depending on how much food colouring you need, you'll find that the more natural food colourings are less fierce in the, so you might need a little bit more. That's what I'm saying. Now, if you want your marzipan to be more yellow, like I said before, what you need to do is into your egg, just put a strand of saffron in, you see, and then you just let that infuse in your egg mixture. Stir it a bit, and it will it will give off a deeper yellow colour, but it won't come out too much. But that's just for your for a yellowy marzipan. You don't really need it to be yellow. There's no
especially
need
if you're going to cover it with icing.
Precisely.
As well.
The other thing I wanted to say is that this marzipan, because you're using caster sugar, does have a slightly grainier texture. If you're not very keen on that, cut down the caster sugar and add a bit more icing sugar. But I don't like to use all icing sugar because that's when it cracks more. It dries out too much. So I do 250 grams of icing sugar and 100 grams of caster sugar. It won't be quite as grainy, but that graininess does go after a time. So don't worry about it too much. Now, if you're going to, the other thing I like to do, especially if it's brandy marzipan or rum marzipan, brandypan, apricot brandy you could use, cherry brandy, coffee, dip. If you get some cocktail sticks, make them into little balls, your marzipan, put it onto a cocktail stick, and dip it into
chocolate.
Melted chocolate, dark milk, white, a mixture. Why did you think
you was coming to chocolate? It's
I know,
always the same.
It is. Well, you could dip it twice as well. You could dip it into your dark or your milk, let that set, and then dip it into your next one. Don't do white chocolate first, because that will melt again straight away as soon as you dip it into the warm chocolate. Use a dark chocolate or a good quality milk chocolate. And also, if you have a pineapple or something, you can stick your cocktail stick in that, and your chocolate will set quicker, and it won't, go a funny shape. Or have a baking sheet that's been in the freezer with some baking paper on. Bring that out, and your chocolate will set virtually as soon as it hits the baking paper.
The other thing you can do with it, is make stollen.
You could make stollen, definitely.
That's going to be another podcast.
That will be our other podcast using marzipan.
Thank you for listening to the Recipe for the Day podcast. We hope to see you sometime at www.kitchennewbie.com. Kitchen Newbie is a kind of online cookery school which hopes to help people new to cooking, and you will find lots of easy recipes and techniques. So, why not pop down and have a look? We're new, there's lots to do, but we'd love to see you just the same.